What's up, everybody? Jack Farr here on behalf of Students of the Game. Actually, I was going to mention this earlier, James. James and I have quickly discussed over the past week or so, we're not students anymore. We've both just graduated from UCFD. We're finished
Indeed.
with university. We're still students of the game, but we're not literally students anymore. But anyway, today's video is a requested video from a viewer at Sammy1679 on Twitter. So we really appreciate him reaching out and requesting us to do a video. It's a greatest of all time left back debate. James and I discussed very quickly before we started. Right back, a little easier. There's a few more names to go from. Left back's not so much. So without further ado, I will ask James a quick question to see if he can get the first overall pick or whether I will get the luxury. James, who was the first footballer to win the Champions League with 3 different teams?
Like you said, it was easy. That's not easy. It's not Clarence Seedorf.
It is Clarence Seedorf. Yeah, there you
Okay.
go. So, greatest of all time left back. Who's your first pick?
Gotta take a quick drink, It's very, very hot today, guys. Hydrate yourself. Number one, I feel this goes on his reputation. When he was playing, I didn't get to watch as much of him. I obviously went back and seen what he's done and obviously how people talk so highly about him. And the first player on my list is Paolo Maldini. I feel like with him, he seems to be the standard for all left backs. You talk about players, you talk about people growing up. There's him, there's another guy, and him when they talk about what type of left back I want to be. His stature as a left back isn't really right. To see someone that tall playing as a left back wouldn't really suit his style of play. He seems to be more like a centre back. But again, look at what he's done in his time. So versatile, can play on he actually started off on the left hand, as a right back, and then switched to playing. He then switched to playing as a left back. Let's talk about his accomplishments. Over 1,000 games played, over 100 caps for Italy, 5 Champions League, 7 Scudettos. He's just the standard of left backs.
Yeah, this is my best defender of all time. This player actually in my greatest 11 of all time. This is actually one of my starting centre backs.
Wow.
He's not one of my left backs. People forget. Obviously, later in his career, he did move to centre back. Now, moving from full back to centre back, usually we see people who are centre backs play full back because they can't cut it at centre back. But for him to kind of start as a fullback and then make the move to centre back is phenomenal. People forget he won 2 Champions Leagues as a centre back, playing against the likes of the Rooneys, the Cristiano Ronaldos of the world. Within that later era. So Maldini is the best defender of all time, in my opinion. A lot of the Italians will get that credit. He's on my list, but I prefer him as a centre back personally.
Okay.
Now, don't get me wrong. Like I say, he's in my top 3. Go ahead.
Could I just tell you this quick story of Wayne Rooney? Wayne Rooney talking about, I think it was the second leg. Manchester United got drawn against AC Milan in the semi-final of the Champions League. He looked up and seen who they had, and it was Maldini. Maldini at that time was 36 or something like that. He was, he was 36, 35. And Rooney assumed that this guy's going to be leggy. He's just going to knock the ball past him and have an absolute field day. They came, they played. He could not get near Maldini. He didn't. In the second leg, Rooney didn't even have a kick, and he was looking at it saying like, how is the player so good? It was just the little things like what they call again when the ball's coming, playing off his shoulder, coming in, nipping in, the way he reads the game, just everything about Maldini.
Yeah, I mean, it's the intelligence. He plays until his late 30s, 40, early 40s level there. I cannot criticise the pick at all. In my opinion, the greatest defender of all time, like I've already said. So I can't criticise you picking him as the number 1 left back. For me, he's just more of a centre back. So I did, in terms of the way I perceive him and where I thought he was better, was at centre back. So that's how I perceive him. My number 1 pick, you have left my number 1 pick still on the board, which I'm really happy with. I'm taking Roberto Carlos. This to me is the epitome of a fullback, especially from a nation who just pumps out these dynamic attacking fullbacks like it's nothing. He, in my book, has scored the greatest goal of all time from a left back, the free kick where he just
the classic one against France.
Yeah, no, that's mad, absolute madness. Defensively, a little bit to be desired, but I think if you're playing in a team such as Real Madrid, which Carlos did for over a decade, to win the amount of titles he won, multiple La Ligas, to win Champions Leagues, the dynamism, the fear factor, he was better than a lot of wingers of the opposition that he played going forward. Mm-hmm. And to me, when I think fullback, one name comes to mind. The dynamics of the free kick taking as well, that extra threat that he has. I've seen some of the most incredible goals scored by him. I know that's not really the main thing you want to take away from being a fullback, but to me, Roberto Carlos is the greatest left back of all time.
I mean, you basically just took it away from him. I spoke about how Maldini was one of the names that people mentioned. Roberto Carlos is the epitome of a modern day fullback, just attacking, his ability to go forward, find crosses. You look at, I don't have the stats right now, but you look at his stats, like going forward and like assists for like players like Raul and like Ronaldo in his time there. It's probably amazing, you know.
And then later in his career, he moved to central midfield. I seem to remember for Angie Mahashkala in Russia. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that's the point for him being the greatest left back of all time, but it says a lot about the player if you can still play professional football in a different position.
You look at Roberto Carlos as an all-round player and his technical ability. I think there was one game, an exhibition game that they had like a few years ago, him in the Bernabeu, and he just flicks the ball up and with his left foot, pings one volley all the way across the field, pinpoint into opposite fullback, and I'm just thinking, this guy is just so much Brazilian flair.
I will say very quickly, I know I talked about Maldini making my all-time World 11. The left back in my World 11 is Roberto Carlos, and one of my centre-backs is Maldini. So two very strong picks to begin with. Who's your second pick?
My second pick, and to me, he might not get as much notoriety in what he's done in world football, but in this country, he's the best. He is a standard in this country, and that's Ashley Cole. Now, again, as a person, he might not be most appealing to a lot of players. I don't mind Ashley. I like Ashley Cole, but as a left back and what he's done, it's just amazing. I've never seen a guy go against Cristiano Ronaldo and have so much joy against him. He's one of the fullbacks who actually is comfortable playing against Cristiano Ronaldo. And this is not Ronaldo in his later years. This is Ronaldo around 2003 to 2007, 8, where he was at his most frightening when it comes to pacing, driving that fullback. And he dealt with Ronaldo really, really well. You look at his level of consistency in the England team now. We mentioned England's golden era. The one player that you can say who was the best in his position at the time was Ashley Cole. You could generally consider him the best fullback, like, in the world. And again, what he's done for Arsenal with the Invincibles, coming over to Chelsea, winning Champions League and multiple leagues, like Ashley Cole standard to me.
Yeah, he played for multiple great clubs, played well at all those clubs. Like you say, I think they're similar in a lot of ways to Maldini. There was that defensive strength that accompanied some good to above average attacking play as well. And yeah, he kind of reminds me of a cornerback in the NFL, going one-on-one with a receiver. There's a bit of trash talk there. There's a little bit of, you're not getting past me because I'm better than you are. But yet again, he's there to back it up. Bit of a controversial career, obviously the Chelsea-Arsenal move. I know for you in particular, probably particularly well. But yeah, I'll be honest. He's fourth. He's fourth on my list. There's two guys ahead of him. But yeah, he was the best left back and one of the best fullbacks in the world for an extended period of time. And I think you have to give him his credit for that.
The one thing you mentioned there is him going forward. I feel like Ashley Cole never got his credit for going forward. I know he was so good going the other way, but going forward, he was one of the best crossers in the league. You know, he might not have been like on like Roberto Carlos level of putting in, like, not real. How many fullbacks are really on his level when it comes to going forward? But his all round going forward and putting crosses into the box and actually scoring goals. You remember that brilliant goal he scored for Chelsea against Sunderland? The ball from JT and he kind of gets to controls it chops it in and then places it into the bottom corner. So he had his moments going forward too.
He had his moments, and you and I have talked on multiple occasions in the past. People like sexy. Unfortunately, the Maldinis and the Coles of the world are not sexy compared to the more attacking type players in the game. Unfortunately, that's why we see Ballon d'Ors won by attackers all the time. I think you could defensively. Virgil van Dijk, for example, probably should be in the conversation for the Ballon d'Or, maybe even winning the Ballon d'Or, but chances are it's probably going to be won by an attacker. However, that's actually a good segue.
It's just classic saying, it's a lot easier to be a destroyer than be a creator.
That's true. That's true. But that's a nice segue, because my second pick, and it's actually my second pick, so you've given me my 1 and 2 picks, which I'm happy about. I'm taking Marcelo. I'm going down that Brazilian route, and I'm basically going to repeat myself from what I said about Roberto Carlos. This was the heir apparent from Roberto Carlos when he left Real Madrid. He's been an absolute stud since. I think if Cristiano Ronaldo had to pick his all-time favorite player to play with, he'd probably be picking Marcelo. Not as athletic as Roberto Carlos, wasn't maybe as strong or as fast, but the technical ability is unrivaled. It's almost weird. We see it especially on Twitter and Instagram, some of his first touches, which he just pulls out of the air. His passing ability, his nous and smartness for the game. But yet again, he still has that dynamic flair of a South American fullback playing for a decade or more at Real Madrid, winning multiple Champions Leagues, multiple La Ligas. To me, I think you and I have talked about in the past, what does Dani Alves have to do to be regarded as better than Cafu? Well, what does Marcelo have to do to be regarded as better than Marcelo? And that debate still rages on today. But Marcelo is my number 2 pick.
Now, again, I had my list, and I had a short list, and Marcelo was the last on my list. And to be honest, it wasn't really in order as much. I had players who I could say, okay, he was the best, but Marcelo was in my list. What can I say about him? I feel like when he first came into Real Madrid, it took him a bit of time to kind of settle into what he was, because he came in as kind of like a winger in a way, then slotted into fullback. People realized that, okay, he was good going forward, but he wasn't that great going backwards, and he got exposed a lot of times, going backwards. But in that period of time when they won their first Champions League till the 4th in a row, he was absolutely immense. Like at a standard, talking about heights for a fullback, he probably reached the height. He probably reached the highest. People talk about him and Cristiano Ronaldo. This might be weird to you, but to me, on skill and ability, Marcelo was as good as Ronaldo. And the things he could do with football at his feet was immense. It would be like so nonchalant when he does it. He can have a ball pinged out to him 60 yards. He could literally just sit on it and the ball would just stop there. He's insane. Gets a lot of criticism now because he's kind of lost that yard of like pace. Anymore, people question sometimes his desire as a player as he lost his mojo. But from that period of the first Champions League to the last one in that 4 in a row for Real Madrid, he was by far the best player in the world, and I mean best fullback in the world. And in the last 10 years, easily the best fullback. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and Brazil really did dominate. Have dominated that sphere. And I think that the Marcelo Dani Alves, that will probably go down as the best fullback tandem to ever play in a single team ever. To play in that Brazil team for the amount of time they have.
Cafu, Roberto Carlos.
But Brazil just pumping out these talents. And, you talk about the comparison to Ronaldo. People who've been listening to me for a while, based on kind of natural talent and ability, you take out the mindset and you take out the training side of the game. I don't think Cristiano Ronaldo is really that great a football player compared to the rest of the world in terms of an all-time perspective, but it's those other attributes that helped him succeed. And Marcelo, similar in that way, has worked very, very hard without having that explosiveness that, say, a Roberto Carlos might have to be better within the game. Who's your final pick, James?
You took my final pick.
Oh, I did?
Yeah, you took my final pick. Because with this list, I only could think of four who was outstanding. You know,
Okay.
I wasn't gonna pick a player just for the sake of picking a player. Now, I mentioned this at the start that I didn't want to pick the players from the 60s and 70s. Why? Because I didn't see them play as much. From the ones I have seen play, I'm not gonna put players like David Alaba, who I believe is a fantastic fullback, but he hasn't done enough for me to put him in this category of all time. You know, same.
I feel like you still need to finish your draft, or else you're basically conceding that I win the draft.
I don't want to put anyone who I don't believe is worthy because we're talking about an all-time list. You could say Jordi Alba, who's great, but I'm not going to put him in this all-time list of like the best players. Brazil, no. This is a special list of players, and I believe only the premium of the premium should get in. Those are my four, and I'm going to stick to it, even if that's considered losing.
That's fair enough. If you stand by that, that's fair enough. I'm going to go for Paul Breitner. And, you know, you and I talked about this before we started recording. No, of course, James and I didn't see these guys play. This is decades ago, way before our time, way before we'd even know, way before the kind of sphere of difficulty that we know these players are playing in. But Paul Breitner played for Bayern Munich, played for Real Madrid, had partnerships with the likes of Franz Beckenbauer, could play multiple positions similar to Franz Beckenbauer, had success at both teams. I think any kind of football historians who might be listening today might be thinking, well, hang on, you know, where are these guys? You know, you talk about all the guys over the last 15, 20 years, you know, the years that we've been alive, enjoying and watching football. But, you know, where are these guys from the past? Couple honourable mentions. The only other sixth person I had written down, I had Nilton Santos, two-time World Cup winner with Brazil, 75 appearances for Brazil, and played at Botafogo in Brazil his whole career, 723 apps. But James, I've got to agree with you. There are four standout guys. Now, for me, there's three standout guys because I like to put Maldini in with the centre backs. Okay. But yes, you're right. I do believe that there is that you know, class difference. And that last guy I mentioned, that Nilton Santos guy, he played his whole career in Brazil. Now, I'm not trying to diss Brazil specifically. Oh, my door's about to close. I'm not trying to diss Brazil, the Brazilian league specifically, but do I think the Brazilian league was on the same level as, say, the English league or the Italian league or the Spanish league at that point? Probably not. And that's going to always take away from it.
Yeah, you know, I can totally agree with you there. I feel like me and Jack are not saying that we don't watch football. We watch football a lot, but to go back and see and understand what it was like in that time is really hard for us because, you know, there isn't that much footage of like the majority of like them type of players. And I don't want to be the one to say, put in a fullback who isn't worthy to go in there over a player like a Nilton Santos, for instance.
Comparing eras is hard too. You know, you look at any sport. The MJ LeBron debate is a prime example of, could MJ play in the modern NBA? Could LeBron play in the old? You know, and I don't even want to get into that or talk about that. We have just had the last dance, but the point is, you cannot put the environment that you play in, the nutritional side of the game, the development side of the game, and then just take that away from a previous era, because it's not really their fault. So did Nilton Santos get an opportunity to play in the Champions League as it is today? No, he didn't. And it's not fair really to criticize him because that's not his fault.
You know, like I hate to throw a dig at Real Madrid, but like you look at Real Madrid winning their first 5 Champions Leagues, one of them that they had to play 7 games in, and you look at the way that them players were built at that time. As great as a player like Stefano is, the majority of them were like top bellies and all them type of. Yeah. They weren't at that physical peak that we can call. So it's hard for me to compare them and bring them into what we've seen today of the stature of players we have today.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll say again. I'll just give the guy a shout out again. At Sammy1679 on Twitter. I really appreciate the fan request video, guys. Please get in touch. At Red Brood for me. James, what's your Twitter handle?
My Twitter. Oh my days. I'll leave it in there for you and put down in the comments. How the hell do I not know my Twitter?
But get in touch with us if you do have any requests. We've got a lot of free time right now. It's lockdown, it's quarantine, it's coronavirus. German football's back, which was fun. James, did you watch any Bundesliga?
Oh yeah, to be honest, I watched the Bayern game and I also watched the Borussia Dortmund game. I watched all of the Borussia Dortmund game. First 30 minutes, you could clearly see that them players were rusty, that they haven't played in a long time. So many misplaced passes, overhit passes. But as soon as the first goal went in, Borussia Dortmund never really looked back and like they kind of kicked on. Wasn't sure about the Schalke goalkeeper. He was a bit.
He wasn't at it, was he? Also, I want to give a shout out as well to the Werder Bremen Leverkusen game, 4-1 to Leverkusen. I watched that. I watched that the other day with Joaquin. That was a nice watch. Probably game of the weekend. I know it sounds like a bit of a wrap, but that was really fun. I think that's it, James. Got anything else you want to say?
No, but guys, if you want us to do a video, please comment down below. Message Jack on Twitter. Message me on Twitter. Let us know what you think, guys. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Get us as big as we can. Let's try to get to, at the moment, we're on 92. Let's try to get to 100 subs. So, guys, click that subscribe button, and we'll see you guys next time.